All right. Got it. Okay. 6 o'clock. The Board of Fire Commissioners is resuming open session on Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. Where am I? Call to order. Yeah, I just did that. Public comment. We'll begin this part of the meeting with public comment. There is no one physically in attendance, so if any of you online want to speak, please just give a wave of your hand and the chief can let you in, or chat, yeah. Okay, then.
I think we have Mr. Gardner raising his hand out there.
We don't have audio.
You're on mute, John.
Gotta raise it higher so I can see it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it looks like I'm okay. I was just going to ask questions.
We're not hearing you yet. Hang on. Chief's trying to get your mic up. Are you unmuted at your end?
Yeah, he is.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now? Nothing yet?
No.
The audio's not on now.
We advertised the meeting for public comment by chat or by email in advance. I've got no public emails in advance. The system right now is not set up to accept audio.
Okay, Mr. Gardner, could you hear that? Can you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he heard that.
Do you have the chat function?
Yes.
I don't see a chat function on here except it's under more.
It's under more.
Yep, chat. So I just sent out a test chat.
Oh, yeah, I
Showing
just.
up.
Can't find it?
Top right hand corner under more.
Can you hear me now? No?
Mr. Gardner, with your permission, can I ask you to find the chat function and post your question? We'll pick it up in public comment at the end.
Sure. Yep.
Great, thank you very much. First order is review of previous meeting minutes. They were posted into the cloud file. I've reviewed it. I didn't find any problems with it. Yes.
All good, yes.
All right, then I would accept the motion to approve the minutes as posted. Second, in favor, Pisano.
Conley?
Okay. Chief's report, monthly activities. We also have that in the file, but why don't you go ahead, Chief?
Sure. 1 second.
I don't have the monthly activity run numbers. During the storm outage, we lost internet for 3 days, and we haven't quite gotten caught up to updating all our records. So the record that was kind of printed out inaccurate at 20 times, so I'll have that for next month.
Can you add that to the cloud file?
I can add it to the cloud file. I'll get it to you guys this week. Administration, SOGs. I'd like to discuss the 2 draft SOGs that we introduced back in September. I'm making a recommendation that we withdraw the SOG that changes day staffing when the chief and deputy are present, and that we make a modification to the SOG for ambulance staffing. And the modification would include increases the exceptions when we would staff the ambulance with 3 instead of the 2 people. So we would increase the exceptions to exceptions that would create a potential legal liability as well as a safety hazard. We want to discuss that before we move on.
Yeah, I think the only other discussion is that's you're going to spend some time and review that with, what was the thoughts on reviewing that with members of the department?
Right, so my recommendation, your recommendation would be that we, and I agree, that we would, prior to drafting the final language, verbiage that specifies what the exemptions would be, we would interface with the union and the officers groups to get their input on what that verbiage would be. So the intent is to cover the firefighters for safety reasons, make sure we have 2 in the back for safety reasons,
for possible legal liability.
And obviously, the guidelines only for stable patients prior to intervention. So prior to 3 stable patients prior to medical interventions would be transported with a single person on the back. So that was my recommendation. We put that in effect after going over the verbiage with the union officers.
Perfect. Great, thank you.
And we've also discussed, Commissioner Collins discussed with the union and myself, some other recommendations to solve our staffing problem. So we've had limited standby coverage, and I guess the basic problem is limited standby coverage. So we've had some discussions on, you want to talk about the commissioner, you want me to talk about it first?
You want to talk about that, we can put on the floor.
Sure. So one of the solutions that we talked about is increasing our standby minimum hours. So right now, the firefighters get a 3-hour minimum at night, so from 11 p.m. till 7 in the morning on holidays, and 2 hours for other periods. So the suggestion is, what I'm at, the recommendation is that we move that up by 1 hour. So there'd be a 3-hour minimum during the day and 4 hours at night and weekends. This would be a 6-month trial period. And it would also, with this, we would enact the CBA provision that we negotiated last contract, which is a 3-person recall standard. So that we would recall personnel to make up 3 firefighters at the station. This is actually convenient because COM firefighters the same way. They are our dispatch provider. Sorry, I people with a jump group. And it's convenient the dispatch do the same way for us as they do with recon. So they would call for to make up a total of 3 when the ambulances or crews committed more than 20 minutes. So it would be a six month trial period. Right now we're low on the budget item for recall. I don't think you, with this over the rest of the fiscal year, more than likely would not exceed the budgeted amount. In addition to that, I would suggest that one of the asks to the union is to create comp time so that the firefighters, instead of getting overtime for recall or for other overtime reasons, they would be permitted to choose comp time instead of overtime. This has actually almost 0 cost to this. So instead of getting overtime or standby or overtime shift, they could take the comp time and take a time off during their shift, which someone else would cover them at overtime. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we'd have the same number of overtime hours for the district. So there'd be no cost to the district for that. So those are the changes that we would like to put in place on a 6-month trial basis.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep, thank you. No further discussion from me. I understand them. And
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. Do we need to do a specific motion for that?
Yes.
we do.
So the motion would be to move the, to a 3-hour minimum from 0700 to 2300 for call-in, and a 4-hour minimum for 2300 to 0700, with the option of leveraging comp time during that time, and also leveraging the CBA agreement with a maximum staffing of 3 personnel at the time.
And that this would be instituted for a 6-month
Excuse me.
trial.
Excuse me, add on to that to a 6-month period trial, exactly. Thank you.
Second the motion? Any other discussion?
No.
In favor, Kazama?
Conley?
Zace.
All right.
As far as activities, I also want to mention that we were very busy during the storm we just had 2 weeks ago. We had up to 100 mile an hour winds on Cape Cod. The town, in the middle of the night, made the decision to put DPW workers in all the fire stations. So we had 2 DPW workers in the fire station for the evening and the next day. We held 2 firefighters over from the night shift, and we worked alongside the town, opening roads up for most of the day shift afterwards. So as you all know, we had lots of trees down, lots of power lines down. Fortunately, our phones were down, our cellular phone system was down. The AT&T system, which we have moved over to for all our vehicles and cellular services, went down because Open Cape went down. So open cable. We also depend on for the internet for stations, so we lost cellular service and phone service for a couple of days, but back up now, something to look at. We look at some a secondary backup source of internet, so we can do records management, whether it's a Starlink or something else, something we can.
How were you able to communicate? Radio?
Was that?
How were you able to communicate?
Radios work fine, yeah. So the radio system did not go down. We've got a pretty robust radio system. We've got the state 800 system we use, and we've also got a backup 800 system as well as a 400 backup system. So radio system was great, but the records management was a little lacking, which is why we're still catching up on that. But everything's online nowadays. Everything's cloud-based, and it's got some advantages and some negatives. And one of them is, when the cloud goes down and we have no internet access, our ability to maintain records is limited. So it's an opportunity to increase some reliability there going forward.
That will remain an open issue.
Open issue. ProEMS report was attached and there. Personnel, we still have one firefighter on IOD back injury. We're hoping that we're going to get that person back in December. There's an evaluation for the medical doctor in December, and we're hopeful we'll get that person back. The chief search has resulted. We put up a request for applications to fire chief for my replacement, and we so far got applications closed yesterday afternoon, and we have a total of 28 applicants. There's some very qualified people. Unfortunately, it would be nice if we could narrow it down to 3 tonight for the final search committee. I don't think we have that option. I think we have too many very well qualified candidates that many of which deserve an opportunity to talk to this board and see whether they're a good fit for the Cotuit. So my recommendations going forward based on open meeting law and what we're able to do and not able to do is to create a search committee. We are unfortunately not able to do a preliminary screening of the applicants in executive session unless we create a search committee with a single fire commissioner on the search committee. That search committee can interview multiple people, keep their names confidential in executive session until they can recommend a finalist, a group of finalist applicants, which can come from the complete board of fire commissioners for consideration.
Okay, so at the outset of this, and based on prior experience, we rather naively thought that we might get a half a dozen, 8 applications, of which we would find it pretty easy to quickly cull maybe down to 3 or 4 interview candidates, and that would be that. We have an unexpected wealth of applications, many of them highly qualified. So I'm going to move that we appoint a search committee that is authorized to go through and bring back to the board a list of finalists. We can make that either 3 or 4, however many you think we ought to try to call it down to. That committee, my recommendation in terms of that is I ran into the deputy chief earlier. He has offered to volunteer to be available on such a committee. The chief, I think you absolutely need to be on it. And I would like to serve on it myself. So I'll put my name in the nomination for that as the board representative. Mr. Gardner, you had previously written to the board expressing interest in serving as a citizen representative to the board. Are you still available for that? I would put his name into nomination as a...
Let's read into the record that he was nodding yes.
Yes, right. And smiling. So if that is agreeable...
You mentioned a few other resources from other neighboring districts. Would you be?
Yeah, so the fire chief, John Burke from Sandwich Fire and Chief Michael Wynn from Calm Fire have also volunteered to be part of this committee.
Are you going to as part of your recommendation, Chairman, add the names? Okay.
Yes, thank you for catching me on the oversight. I meant.
No, I didn't need that. I didn't need to.
No,
Yeah.
it went right by me.
Yeah.
So that's, if I can
Commissioner-
reiterate the proposal, then that we form a search committee to review these applications and bring back to the full board list of the top, do we want to say 3, 4, 5, how many?
I'd like to
So I
say,
think that has to be decided on by the committee itself. And that would be a real-time decision based on the quality of the candidates they see. To your point on being interested in being part of that, I would put my name into consideration as well. I've spent a considerable amount of time reviewing every application that has come in, both their applications and potentially their LinkedIn profiles if they had them, as well as some other, searches, so to speak, for them. I have come up with what I view as a short list of about 7 of them that I think are highly qualified, but I do think it is critical that we get the board together, so to speak, you get a group together, including the 2 chiefs, and getting their perspective before, a civilian like myself's position would be, considered.
I would add that I spent a significant amount of time as well doing things like that, looking around the net for social media profiles as well, and to get a sense of cultural fit is one of the things you saw in my. I thought long and hard about how would we go about sort of winnowing this down. I'm not going to put my name forward on the search committee because I believe that the search committee is going to, with like participation of Mr. Gardner and the other chiefs, et cetera, more expertise than I have. But I think 5 or 7 finalists is the number that I would be more comfortable with rather than 3. But I'm not, it's not an ultimatum. It's just my opinion. I was going to say 5, but he said 7.
We could certainly,
I didn't say
we could
a number, I
certainly
said
charge
that-
the committee to bring us a minimum of 3 finalists.
I think that's valid. I think it should be a minimum of 3 finals, but I do think that is a number that should be left to whoever is in the committee, because they could come.
I'm not trying to stipulate what it is. I too thought there was an awful lot of quality there. There was some not quality, but so.
Yeah, well, as is typical in this process, it's, the winnowing the bottom quarter is not that difficult. It's
No.
dealing with all the rest. I appreciate that both of you, as did I, have devoted a lot of hours to these applications. And so I guess we have 2 pieces to resolve here. One is the motion to create the committee. And the second is to decide which of us.
So I would make a motion that we create a committee to review the chief's applications and leverage resources outside of the exact commissioners for that search.
Second, in favor, Pisano.
Conley?
Ziggs.
All right, as to personnel on the committee, the 2 outside chiefs and our chief, do we want to invite the deputy chief?
I'll come back to my statement on how many candidates there are. I think that becomes a conversation on whoever runs the committee, exactly who they bring in, and to decide how wieldy that committee should be.
Well, I think once the committee is formed, it becomes cumbersome for them to then internally modify the population of the committee.
Why is that?
I think it has to come back to us for approval.
What's that?
I think it has to come back to us for approval if they want to change it.
We didn't put numbers on how many, we just approved that a committee would be created. We did not say a committee would be created with 7 people or 12 people or 2 people.
You have to appoint the committee.
Yeah, I think we should appoint the committee, or we should.
I think we're obligated to,
Yeah.
my understanding of the structure of it, so that we wouldn't.
Okay.
All due respect to Deputy Chief, you're talking about Deputy Chief Joe Pouliot.
Yeah.
I think with the outs, I'm wondering about how I'm gonna roll that back. It's fine with me, generally speaking. I worry, the concern I was is like, how cumbersome is this going to potentially be? But I realize that all this can be done similar to the effort that we all put in. The committee is going to review, just like we did, these things. So I don't think it necessarily suffers by having one more person, in this case, deputy chief.
Well, the other angle on that is if we appoint a smaller, more compact board, they're authorized to seek outside input without necessarily being, on the board. They can.
I'll be more clear. I really like the list of people that Sandwich, Tom, Mr. Gardner, Joe, one of us, our chief.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to that either.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there was probably a requirement to do that. If that's the case, then that's who the names I would go with as well.
Yeah, I think that's.
Okay, so it's left to vote about which one of us sits on.
Do we have to, as part of the, do we have to have a secondary motion to name the committee?
Well, since there are two people offering,
No. I mean, okay.
People we just named.
Yeah, do we have to do a motion to say that the committee shall consist of those people?
yes.
Okay.
But before we do that,
First, let's do that. You wanna-
we're gonna figure out which one of us is gonna be
So
on
in terms
there.
of discussion, I think that Kevin has done, especially recently, a terrific job. It sounds like he really, really wants to do it. Yes? Am I putting words or thoughts into you?
No, I'd very much like to do it.
As do I.
No,
I didn't have a campaign speech.
Actually, I mean, if you figured it out, the vote lays on you, actually, in all honesty, so let's.
Well, at the risk of pissing one or both of you off, I'll throw my vote behind Kevin. And I don't mean in any way, you have done a tremendous amount of work as the chairman. And I think in this, let's see what they come up with. I do appreciate you stepping forward. Okay.
As Rick's offer as well, I appreciate that. So do we have an official vote or what we do?
I move that Kevin Conley, Commissioner Conley, be named to this search committee as the representative from the Board of Fire Commissioners.
I'll second that.
And in a second, in the interest of harmony, I'll make it unanimous.
Thank you.
So now the primary motion that we're forming a search committee to be constituted by the chief, our deputy chief, the two outside chiefs named, Commissioner Conley and Mr. Gardner as a citizen representative. I have a second.
Second.
Do you put deputy Pula? Did you put the
Yes.
deputy in that? You did,
Yes.
okay, just, yep, second, yep, I'll go with that.
In favor, Pisano?
Conley?
Stays.
Okay. I would urge the committee to proceed post haste, and I'll try to get you then to you, my list. Did you forward your list to him as well?
No, I did. I sent it to you because I figured
Yeah.
you would.
No, I appreciate
it
that.
was more appropriate, but I will absolutely share my.
Right. So we'll
rankings.
both get you
Okay.
our
Perfect.
ratings.
Thank you.
To take to that committee.
The soonest open meeting law becomes Thursday for holiday, the soonest they can meet is Monday. So if Commissioner Conley.
Put target Monday.
Times possibly on Monday or.
Yep.
As soon as they can next week, so I can post the meeting.
Absolutely.
Terrific.
Let me just ask real quick, Mr. Gardner, do you have times in general on Monday, probably late afternoon? Availability?
Just a thumbs up, Mr. Gardner. It's good. Good.
Mr. Gardner, were you able to hear that?
Oh,
Okay.
There we go.
There you go. Terrific.
John, I'll make sure I reach out to you so that we can get introduced, so I'll get you my number and so forth.
All right. Next item on the agenda, Chief, is your report apparatus.
Apparatus, currently, six sodas out of batteries to be recharged. I'll pull that out of the water tomorrow and charge the batteries up. I don't know if it was a short, but maybe it was just, I don't know exactly what happened, but the batteries, both sets of batteries have been recharged. So we'll get that out of the water tomorrow, jump start it and get it charged up. Other than that, nothing else for apparatus.
We have,
Ambulance.
yeah, go ahead.
So the ambulance, spare ambulance that we were looking at to procure, that keeps coming out of Rooster due to everything else, COVID and backlog in vehicles. Their new ambulance is delayed, and we're looking at mid-February now instead of December, so that got delayed. The new deputy's replacement car is looking like they said end of November, December now. So they're still waiting on parts to install on that.
I thought we push brakes, they pushed the brakes.
We discussed looking into it. I talked to them. They said if we put the brakes on, and I could give them a call back and try to reappropriate, I'm sure the other department is looking to grab it. But if we do, we're not going to get another one for probably at least a year. So it's either now or over a year from now. So those are kind of our choices right now. We never took a vote on whether you guys want, I don't recall that you wanted me.
No, we did not take a vote.
So
No, we didn't.
we can certainly do that now. I can say we're the likely this high demand vehicles. We might be able to have them reappropriate for someone else, but it's going to be a long time before we can get another one.
Well, that may be, I think that I don't think we should buy it. That's pretty simple. I don't think we, I think the optics of buying a car, we don't have a deputy chief. It seems pretty logical to me that we would say, let's not, even though it was voted for at the annual district meeting, that we should.
Flip this. As soon as we complete the hiring of the new chief, next order of business is to recruit for a deputy chief. And I assumed we would invite anybody who submitted applications.
Why would that be a foregone conclusion as a sort of like a matter of fact? It didn't occur to me that we would just do that as a matter of fact.
My assumption is that we would move forward with the deputy as well, frankly. That once we got the chief squared away.
The department has constituted that the applicants have applied for the position of chief includes the position of deputy chief. Because ours is retiring or out on medical, it would certainly be that in that person's best interest to want to move pretty quickly.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did we not create the position as a essentially a one-time position?
No.
I don't recall it that way. Okay, I'll have to go back and somehow, you'll have to help me with that.
When we had this discussion originally, we were facing the circumstance of the chief being overwhelmed by the volume of administrative tasks that were in front of him. And the structure that we had in place when we had an administrative assistant wasn't working well. When we looked at redesigning that organizational structure and moved from an administrative assistant to a deputy chief, with the chief and the deputy chief distributing the administrative duties between them, depending on their areas of expertise. We were looking at reorganization of the structure, and that is what we proposed, and it was what we acted on. So we have, right now, we have a vacancy that a new chief coming on is looking at potentially taking on the same bundle of duties that Paul was faced with when the old model of the administrative assistant didn't work out.
All right, isn't it somewhat logical to imagine that the new chief would want to be essentially in charge of, or being much more engaged in that decision, should he or she want to go ahead with such an organization, or to rearrange resources in a different fashion.
I suppose it's possible that a new chief could prefer a different organizational structure and want to come to this board to talk about it, suggest it, request it. But the way the department is currently structured, and that's the structure to which chief candidates applied, is a department with a deputy chief. The fact that it currently has a vacant chair, and that we are holding off taking any action on that until a new chief is instituted, to give that person the opportunity to be fully participatory in the process of recruiting their own deputy.
Well, I suppose since the, what did you say the potential lead time is on this new vehicle?
It'll be here in about a month to 2 months at the latest. They've got the vehicle, it's in stock, they're waiting for the lights and some of the equipment to be installed in it. So if we've requested it, money's been appropriated, we have not received it, we have not been invoiced for it. If we decline it, it's going to be over a year before we get another one.
Well, no.
If they may be.
I mean, they might not, but
All right.
Yeah, we didn't take a vote. My recollection of the conversation when I was out in Seattle was that we were going to essentially put that on pause, but I guess.
We were going to ask the dealer if we could put a hold on it, and they responded basically, we want to invoice this thing out. If you don't want it, we'll move it along to the next requesting department, and we'll put your name to the back of the list for the next available possibility. But unless we are talking about some major reorganization proposal, I think that if we complete a chief search by early December, the next order of business is to get on the deputy search. And
okay,
Kevin, your thoughts?
I think it's, in today's world, I think we need to get that vehicle now. I don't know that we'll have an option in the future. I think we've all decided that the older vehicle needs to be taken care of, and that a new one needs to come in place, and that the timing, I think the timing is going to work out perfect.
Okay. Well, it doesn't require a motion.
no, it doesn't.
And so the earliest we would be looking at the possibility of the second ambulance is mid-February, right?
They're talking mid-February now, yeah.
So that would mean a new chief would also have time to work out and get comfortable with the arrangements with sharing with Sandwich. Okay.
What's the status on the exhaust system on the current ambulance?
It's functional.
But is it, do we need to make significant repairs to it?
Not that I'm aware of, no. We've had a lot of work done to it over the last year.
So there's nothing really, I mean, we've talked a lot about, we've had a lot of discussion about the end of life of that, and it feels like it's sooner than later on that vehicle.
Well, we poured a lot of money into to extend that life span out, knowing that
right,
it was a substantial unanticipated additional cost to get. But with that, we get maybe a year or 2 years beyond our original projections about it.
what were the original projections?
Was it a 5-year or a 7-year?
The ambulance is up for replacement next year, so that's something we might
That's
get
right.
at next May's annual district meeting.
Okay, so We're we're trying to limit limit to that finish line, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah, but given the backlog of vehicles, just because it's on May's district meeting doesn't mean.
No, I totally understand.
Here, so.
Yeah, the capital projections.
I don't have that.
Right, 2023 was what had originally been hoped for. Now, with the extra money that we poured into it, we can maybe hope to figure that we can get at least another year beyond that, get it out to 2024. But the further we go, the iffier it gets because of the engineering problem with that particular vehicle. So the availability and utility of the backup potentially becomes more important as we try to push that out.
Prices tend to go up, not down, and things like that. Is it?
Yeah. Funny how that works.
I mean, should we be being more proactive? I understand trying to extend the life of things, but I'm wondering whether this is a vehicle into which no more money should be sunk. And should we be proactive about actually thinking about replacing it in 2023?
We certainly can talk about it. I would suggest that would be something to take up early with the new chief.
Yep. Okay. That just, sorry, I'm looking at the time. Didn't mean to waste 10 minutes on that.
Chief, facilities.
Nothing new with facilities. We're still waiting to try to get a third quote for inside painting. But other than that, nothing new in facilities.
Are the two that we have in the right ballpark?
Yeah, they're very close to the same.
Okay. And we need 3 because of state regs?
We either need 3 or we need a no bid from someone stating something in writing that they refused to bid or unresponsive.
Chief, we've been waiting a ridiculous amount of time for that third bid.
Yep.
So how do we get past this?
I just I've been busy taking over that and the deputy's job, so I haven't got the third bid. So I can call somebody in writing and request something in writing back that says either they're going to bid or they're not going to bid and get it in writing. So it's nothing, you should be able to get on next week or so.
Can that be from anybody? What are the limitations of that? Anybody that's a painter, they have to be on a state contract?
They've got to be insured. They don't have to be on state contract. No, they just have to be an insured vendor.
Okay, do you have somebody that you could potentially?
We've got 2 that bids from them.
I know you got 2 in here.
I've got a third that I know that I contact to get a bid from you.
Let me know if that doesn't work and I'll grab your painter to make a decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Anything else from you, Chief?
No, that's all I got.
Okay, in the
Website, we're doing a goodbye coffee at the fire station on the 19th for the deputy Cotuit. So the means offered to help us with that. It's going to be 10 a.m. to noon on the 19th. So I'll give everybody.
November 19th.
November 19th. I'll give everybody a written invitation at the end of the week.
Chief, is that going into the current as part of the chief's corner?
It won't get in there in time now.
Okay.
I can ask the Civic Association to email it out as your email list.
Deputy's been around for a while. I would think there might be something to that.
Add that to the email list.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Fran might be texting us something, or chatting us something about that too. Okay. Under old business, policy advisory committee update. Do you folks have a meeting?
Yeah, it's next week, I believe. No? Right. No updates because there's been no meeting.
There you go. Elementary school committee update.
I can only tell you that there's progress.
Progress.
The It's all confidential at this stage.
All right, progress is a good tell. Firefighter Physical Fitness Committee update.
We are in a holding pattern on that right now, so we have not made any progress. We will re-engage over the next couple of weeks.
Very good. I don't have any other topics, so we'll go to the final public comment. Mr. Gardner, did you want to,
Fran,
did you want to use chat? No, you're good. Did you want to use chat for public comment?
Can you hear me now?
No?
I'll try the chat.
You should write it on big signs and hold it up.
All right. Any of the other online people, I can't see you. Just let me know when the committee is going.
So just click your more button and then go to the chat. And you will then see that what you were seeing is the notification. You actually have to go to the chat.
Yeah, Fran, the process of library, the last email.
To John's question in there, does anybody have Mr. Gardner's phone number?
You just hit that in there.
Okay, cool, if you would. John, I'll contact you directly, okay? Thumbs up, come on, we're looking for thumbs up.
Okay, public comment here.
Cynthia Gardner, 94 School Street. Keep it on. I just have a couple of questions. I'm at a loss. So I know you talked about changing the SOGs. Are those the same SOGs that you're planning on going into impact bargaining over?
SOGs that were involved in the impact bargaining request.
Okay, so are you going into impact bargaining or are you putting them on hold until you discuss it with the firefighters? I'm at a loss.
Did you miss that whole discussion?
You said you're changing them.
We are withdrawing one and we are changing the other.
Okay, you said when you're changing it, you were gonna discuss it with the firefighters, so does that mean impact bargaining is on hold?
No.
No, that's all I wanted to know for a question. Okay, second, Mr. Gardner, John, Gardiner, brother of a firefighter of the Cotuit Fire District?
Gardner.
Is it?
No.
No, different John. Okay, that's all I wanted to make sure, because we have more than one John Gardner. It is, so that's why I wanted to clarify. Okay, that's my only question. So you're still planning on moving into impact bargaining over SOGs that a fire chief that is leaving office without waiting for your new fire chief to decide what you should do?
Whether or not the impact bargaining goes forward is up to you. They have requested based on the prior postings of SOGs for comments.
Okay, so you are putting them back out to them, so they will respond back. That's not, we just
It's been posted. The comment period is over. They asked for impact bargaining. We have modified.
But you just modified it, right?
Finish my sentence?
Yep.
We have modified one, withdrawn the other, we have voted on them, they're going into effect. The terms of one clause of the SOG are about safety in the back of the ambulance. The qualifying conditions are going to be open discussion between the chief and the union to get their input about agreement. If agreement is reached, they may well decide they don't qualify for or want to try to pursue that bargain. If they do, it becomes another dance.
Okay, thank you. Would it be possible to please receive a copy of that, the change in the SOG?
The proposal was, will be in the
Minutes.
minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Review the
Okay, thank you.
No other public comment?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn?
In favor?
Says.
Conley.
I